To finish up the 9.1 section this week, we're going to learn how to work with fractions. We're going to learn how to add and subtract radicals and how those rules are different than multiplication and division sometimes. So when I look at number 1, the square root of 4 over 49, I can think of it as the square root of 4 over the square root of 49. So since the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 49 is 7, the square root of 4 over 49 is 2/7. So same idea, number 2, the square root of 100 over 4x squared, I can think of this as the square root of 100 over the square root of 4x squared. I could reduce 100 over 4 if I wanted to, and we'll see how that affects our final step. So I can think of it just like this. The square root of 100 is 10. The square root of 4x squared. So the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of x squared is x. So 10 over 2x, and then our final answer, the 10 and the 2 can reduce since they're both divisible by 2 to be 5 over 1x, or just 5 over x. So I can either simplify the 100 over the 4 first, or I can save it for the end, but my final answer is 5 over x. So number 3, same idea. I can take the square root of 8 over the square root of 6. I can simplify them. Due to the fact that they're not perfect squares, I might as well simplify them first. If they are perfect squares, I maybe won't simplify. But I can go ahead and divide both of these numbers by 2. I'm allowed to do that. I'm just not dealt with the square root yet. So the square root of 8 over 6 is the same thing as the square root of 4 over 3, which is the same thing as the square root of 4 over the square root of 3. Now, the square root of 4 is 2. And the square root of 3 is not simplifiable. So I'm not going to write 1.7, I think it is. This would technically be almost my answer. However, we need to do something called rationalize the denominator, which means the denominator, or the bottom part of the fraction, cannot have a root in the final answer. So I'm going to rationalize the denominator, and here's how. Whatever the denominator is, I'm going to multiply the fraction by that, root 3 over root 3. The square root of 3 over the square root of 3 simplifies to be 1. So I'm just multiplying the fraction by a fancy form of 1, which means I'm allowed to do this. So I'm going to multiply the numerator by root 3 and the denominator by root 3. So I'll go the long way, all the steps here, but we'll notice patterns and save time as we go. So 2 times root 3 is 2 root 3. And then in the denominator, root 3 times root 3 is the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the same thing as the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is the same thing as 3. So 2 root 3 over 3. Now this is my final answer.